Listening to music is so much a part of everyday life that it seems hard to imagine that only 60 years ago, recording was in its infancy. Well, what was it like to record in the beginning? In the first place, it was all done without electricity. Instead of a microphone, you played or sang into a large collector horn, and it drove a needle that cut a groove directly on a wax disc. It helped a lot if you were loud. Never mind any subtleties. It wasn't perfect, but it was music. Electricity made it much easier for the engineer to record. The devices it helped produce, like amplifiers and microphones, improved the quality of the recordings a lot. But it wasn't until the invention of the tape machine that engineers and musicians got the kind of control over the music that they'd been looking for. The magnetic tape recorder made it possible to record a song several times, and with a razor blade, cut up and splice together the best passages of each take. Recordings now began to represent a musician's best efforts. Now he had the freedom to extend himself, to stretch out and go his limit without worrying about mistakes. If they happened, they were simply cut out. Now, this was a big improvement, but everybody still had to play at the same time in the same room, just like the good old days. When stereo happened, the engineers decided to split the tape down the middle to get the two independent channels. And when the musicians found out that they could separate the two channels, the next thing they wanted to be able to do was to record them at separate times. And if two channels were good, how about 3, or 4, or 24? The multi-track tape recorder not only changed the way music was made, but it allowed the making of music that was impossible by any other means. The one-man band was no longer a novelty or a joke. If you played more than one instrument, or one instrument more than once, you could now hear what you sounded like together. Songs could be put together section by section, instrument by instrument, and even if necessary, note by note. A not-so-good ragtime piano player who had a little trouble keeping it together could play the left hand and then overdub the right hand and turn out to be a not-so-bad ragtime piano player. Now, the example may be a bit extreme, but it is possible, and so is quite a lot more. What makes it possible? Simulsync, and this is the musician's dream come true. The 3340S has the extra circuits and switches, and they're on the head stack, that allow you to convert any channel on the record head to a playback head. Using one head to do both jobs, both listen and record, ensures that all the music ends up in the same place on the tape, simultaneous synchronization. So when you're done and you play back, it all plays back together. Well, that's the theory, and probably the easiest method of showing you how it works in practice is to do something. First, you have to have something to record. After you have the idea worked out, it's usually best to begin with something simple and steady, like a rhythm guitar part, so we'll put that on track 1.
Let me see now, a rhythm guitar.
Now you rewind the tape, and here's where we make the record head do all the work. We're going to listen to track 1 in the sync position, and record a second part on track 2. Now you got a problem. Now, since you can't see what's on the tape, you're going to have to give yourself some kind of a cue so you'll know when to play, which means you'll have to record the rhythm guitar part again.
All right.
And this time with a count-off.
All right, now. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Now, after you get it together with the machine, you're still going to have to get it together with your music, but now you have as much time as you need. Your rhythm guitarist is on tape. He never gets tired, and he always plays exactly the same part. So you can practice and record the melody as many times as it takes to get it right.
I'm going to pick it till I learn it.
Well, suppose you have a friend and he also plays the guitar. You don't have to do it all by yourself. Play what you've got for your friend, and he can make up a part of his own. But if you change your mind later, you can always take his part off track 3 and put something else on, like a bass part. Now you still have one track left to experiment with, track 4. So...
Oh, I really love my Teac tape recording. It's a lot of fun.
Now what you put on the last track is up to you. There's nothing to prevent you from putting more than one sound on it, as we've done here. And for that matter, what you put on any track is up to you. There are no rules. There are guidelines in getting the balance right between two different sounds into one mic. But there's no substitute for hands-on experience. Make your own guidelines. It's your music, and it pays to experiment. And just as it's possible to record two sounds with one microphone, it's also possible to record one sound with two microphones. So let's try that next. A piano in stereo. Now this piano is a very small upright, and to get the sound we were looking for took some time and quite a lot of listening. We started out by pulling the piano away from the wall and listening to it from all sides, and we ended up crawling on our hands and knees around the back. And that's where we finally put the microphones, one at each end of the soundboard. And now let's change the music. Now, if the music is different, perhaps the sound should also be different. Here we have the same piano player, and the same two microphones. Only the placement of the microphones has changed. They're now 6 feet over the piano. Now, the microphones are far enough away from the instrument to pick up the sound reflections from the walls of the room it's being played in. Different rooms produce different sound characteristics, and the same room sometimes produces different sounds in different places in it, so you can try them all. And with an instrument a little more portable than a piano, a guitar, say, you can record in a hallway or a bathroom, and everyone who's ever sung in the shower knows the glamorizing effect of reverberation. Echo and reverberation are technically not quite the same thing, even though the terms are used somewhat interchangeably. Echo is one repeat, an echo of the original. Reverb is many repeats, many echoes of the original, each one altered by how far away the reflecting surface was that caused the echo. You can simulate natural reflection of sound by making use of the distance between the record head and the playback head on your tape recorder. You can get one echo, or by looping the signal from playback to record, get many echoes or reverberation. The effect sounds like this if you use 7.5 inches per second to record at, and like this if you use 15 inches per second. The spring echo units in guitar amplifiers sound like this, and as long as you can get in and out with your signal and back to your tape recorder, they're very usable. But if you have no guitar amplifier or spring echo unit, but you do have some spare stereo gear, you can use a loudspeaker and a microphone to make an echo chamber out of your bathroom. Now let's try for a big change. Now that sounds like a large gong, but let's hit it again. Now that's the sound you'd expect. It's a regular cymbal. Now the difference was where we put the microphone, again. In the first place, the microphone is only 1/2 inch from the edge of the cymbal and was played very lightly. In the second place, the microphone was 10 inches away and we hit the cymbal with a drumstick. Now this kind of experimenting can save you a lot of money. Chinese gongs are very expensive. You don't have to go to a drum shop to get percussion effects. You can try your kitchen. Now, all the sounds you hear now are being made with a 1-quart pot, a vegetable strainer scratched with a spoon, a cardboard box, and a very ordinary book of matches brushed back and forth on the pants leg. Now, in reality, the cardboard box is quite loud, and the matchbook is very quiet. But if you have a multi-channel machine with all the sounds separate, balancing them to get a good mix is quite easy. You just turn down the loud one and turn up the soft one. Now we'll show you an effect that's possible only with a tape recorder like the 3340S. The sound on the left is a guitar. In fact, it's the same guitar as the one on the right. And the difference is one was recorded at half the speed of the other. Now, how do you make this effect? Well, you start with the guitar on the right and slow the tape down. And you listen to this sound and record another part. And you can see it sounds quite normal at this speed. Now here it's a big help if you have something stable like our matchbook track. Then when you get all done, you go back to normal speed. And you have the effect. And if you like, you could do it the other way around and make one part play an octave lower. Suit yourself. It is possible at this point to combine the first three tracks onto the fourth. Erase the first three and continue, but if we'd done that here, we wouldn't have been able to show you the instruments one at a time. And so to continue, we're going to use some more equipment. A small mixer, and another tape machine, and also a spring echo unit like you might find in a guitar amp. Since our fourth track is still open, we're going to record another high-speed guitar part before we continue. Now we're going to take these four tracks and combine them in a mix, which we'll call our basic track. Now, since we'll be putting more parts on top of this, we'll leave the count off on the transfer. Track 1 on our new piece of tape contains all the music that was on our old piece of tape. That leaves us 3 tracks to work with. And we added 2 percussion parts and a bass guitar part. Now to get the first percussion part, we went back into the kitchen, got a pot top and recorded it with a lot of echo. Now to get this bass drum effect, we put a microphone inside the reflex port of a loudspeaker and tap the outer edge of the cone. Then we recorded the bass. But instead of using an amplifier, we plugged it right into the machine, direct. Now you could consider this a finished product. It's quite complete as it stands, 7 different parts. But let's go on and mix it down again. Now a bass player might think this mix is perfect, but this piece isn't a bass solo, so let's turn it down a little bit before we make the second transfer. Now, if this was a song, you do the vocals now. But since this is an instrumental piece, let's try something melodic, something like a vocal. Now that sounds a synthesizer. It's an ARP Odyssey. And the people at ARP Instruments were kind enough to loan us this one for our record. Now, if you have a part, synthesizer or anything else that you like, but you're not quite sure you'd like to keep it, don't erase it. Do another part. And yet another. And make up your mind when you have several to select from. Vocals are often done this way. Now let's play them all together just for fun. And there you have it. 10 separate parts, all made by one musician over a period of several days. And yet the finished piece only takes 2 minutes and 20 seconds to play. And it's quite a bit different than where we started from. A matchbook and a guitar. Creative musicianship and the improvement of the music was and is the reason for the development of the multi-channel tape recorder. Now the 3340S has many nice features like 10.5-inch reels, 3 motors, and 3 heads. But Simulsync is not just another feature. In truth, it has nothing to do with the fidelity of the recording. It is a music-making tool that is basic to the musician's interest in multi-channel work. And it's the necessary function that allows you to draw a truce in the war between time and art. It gives you the opportunity to improve your music and your musicianship. You can keep the good and redo the not-so-good, and you can do it in private. You can become performer and audience, student and teacher. You can expand and multiply your music, and you can get it from your head onto the tape. With the 3340S, your instruments and your talent, your musical dreams and fantasies can become audible and permanent reality. Now, on this record, we have shown you some simple and not-so-simple examples of how to use this machine, not the least of which is this entire two-sided album, which we did with the 3340S. But to be honest, we ought to talk a little bit about simple and not-so-simple failures.
Rats.
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 The 3340S is, after all, a machine. It's not a human being. If you expect it to operate itself, it will disappoint you.
Rats.
You're going to have to learn which buttons to push and in what sequence. Oops. Going to have to learn how to clean it and demagnetize it.
Geez, it didn't make that much noise last week.
And also how to have patience with yourself when you do make mistakes.
Rats.
Running out of tape in the middle of a recording.
Rats.
Putting too much level on the tape. Not enough level on the tape. It's true you do need patience if your tape sounds like this, but perhaps some music is better than nothing. And the ultimate disaster, perhaps, is erasing a tape that you have worked on for weeks. That's not funny at all. All of the examples we've showed you, both the successes
Yeah.
and the failures,
Rats.
have happened many times to many musicians. And the information we've collected and presented here is not the work of a public relations firm or an advertising agency. It came from the people who have used the 3340 and the 3340S to make music with. We've showed you some examples of what you can do and what you'll wish you hadn't done with this tape recorder. The other side of this record is a history of what one group of musicians, the Hello People, who bought a 3340 actually did, and how they did it. So turn the record over and we'll show you some more.